Greetings, everyone. Welcome to this special Shift Talk presentation, Music and Sound in Disrupted Times, Expanding the Relevance of Sound Work for Cultures in Crisis, with Joshua Leeds. Joshua Leeds is a sound researcher, music producer, and educator. He's the author of The Power of Sound, Through a Dog's Ear, Sonic Alchemy, and the forthcoming Soundwork on a Hot Rock. And now, let's welcome Joshua Leeds.
Hello, hi, I'm so glad to be here with you, and I'm so glad to be here on the Shift Network Sound Healing Summit. I bring a little bit of a different slant to things. I can't help it, it's just the way that I am. And you know, for a long time, I've been looking around corners, and I've been looking around corners in the short run as well, and there are so many corners to take a look and to say, wow, things are very different now than they used to be. I've been involved in the field of music and sound work. I started in music when I was about 7 years old. That's a long time ago. And I started in sound work in 1986 when I produced albums for Louise L. Hay. And so I've got almost 40 years into this field. And I've written a number of books. And I've been watching the field carefully, and I keep on wondering what is basically the relevance of our field as everything around us is changing. And so the title of my conversation today, of my talk today, is Music and Sound in Disrupted Times, Expanding the Relevance of Sound Work for Cultures in Crisis. Now that's a mouthful, isn't it? And what I'm really talking about in all of this is basically, I want to define some terms. When I talk about disrupted times, I think it's very clear that between COVID and between climate and between social fabric issues, we've got a lot on our plate as human beings on this planet. And I think that probably over the next number of decades, maybe it's even 4 decades or 5 decades or 10 decades or 10 minutes, I don't know. But I want to use this time right now to be in an inquiry, and I want to ask questions. And I invite you to enter into a dialogue with myself and with other people who are interested in how we use music and sound for the betterment of this planet. And when I say this planet is fine, and it's going to keep on going just fine, no matter what happens with any of these things, but for the betterment of humankind and our animals and our trees and our waters, for the betterment of this being on this planet as sentient beings. I want to open an inquiry, and I have more questions than I probably have answers. But what I want to do is I want to start conversations, or I want to add to the conversations that other people are having either internally or with other people around them. And I would like it to start to become a public conversation about what are we going to do? I mean, because the fact of the matter is that we're in a perfect storm right now. We're in a planet in crisis. Some people might disagree with that, but I'm going to just, because I happen to have the mic right now, call it a planet in crisis between pandemics and climate change and war and social fabric issues that include racism and rights, women's rights, gender rights, gun rights. Add to that list, there's 15 other things, between gun violence that here in America just won't stop, income inequities, homelessness, divisive politics. The list just goes on and on and on. So what does that mean for those of us who are dedicated to the idea of how we can use our love of music and our interest in sound work? How can we use that to be able to make a difference on a planet that is challenged with so many things? And so that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about music and sound in disrupted times. And I want to let you know that I can get pretty dystopian about all of this because it's a whole lot. And yet I keep on coming back to the concept of the silver lining. I keep on coming back to the concept of out of everything that is difficult and challenging comes a silver lining. And by a silver lining, what that means is it is the positive. What comes out of the darkness? It's the light. What comes out of the negativity? It's the positivity. And so that's what I'm looking to be able to inquire and look into in this conversation. I'm writing a book, and I started to write this book in 2018. And I started to write it because I was doing a presentation here on one of these Shift Sound Healing Summits. And I started to think about my mentor, Alfred Tomatis. And the wonderful moderator was Alec Sims. And he said to me, I've interviewed 35 people and no one is talking about Tomatis. That's spelled Tomatis. I got to put in a plug for the guy. Look him up, do a Google search on him. And I got off of the interview and I thought about that. Here were all of these people who were talking about sound work and sound healing and music therapy and sound therapies. And nobody was talking about the heaviest guy in the whole field. And so I thought, oh my God, I got to write a book about this. And so then guess what happened? COVID happened. And then I went, I think that I don't know what to write because I don't understand in this space and place of uncertainty. I don't understand where we're going to be in 10 or 15 years or 5 years or 5 minutes from all of this. I don't have a clue about that. And so I've been writing this book in my head and going back to the computer, every week or every month, or I've read stuff that was at the beginning of 2020 when Wuhan was just a strange name in a strange city a long ways away, and started to think about and look at all of the uncertainty that we have been in. And isn't it great that now we still have COVID on this planet, but yet we are, so many of us, looking to be over the hump of that and getting back to our lives. But how do we get back to our lives? Because the truth is, one man's humble opinion, I think that we've all changed. And I looked at it and I just went, we've just come from a pandemic, and 2 or 3 years ago, fire in one afternoon took out 3,000 homes in my neighborhood. And I'm going, climate and the effect of global warming and climate change is just this part of the same thing. It's all part of a world out of balance. And then when we add all of these other things that I was talking about, we have a lot of work to do. So how can we take sound work, the intentional use of music and sound, and how can we put it to work? In other words, when I first started writing books about all this, I wrote a book called Sonic Alchemy. And Sonic Alchemy was about the exploration of what do we do if we pour tone and tempo and pattern and frequency and all of the different rock and roll and classical music and the effects of vibration on everything. What happens when we take all that and we're in a lab and we're pouring and making these formulas and trying to figure out what is the effect that has on people? And I've now realized that because of the shift in time and the shift in what happens around us, that I've gone from being a sonic alchemist, truthfully, to becoming a sonic activist. And I was an activist when I was a kid, and the Vietnam War was going on, and the Ban the Bomb movement was going on, and the civil rights movement was going on. And I'm as much an activist now. It's like I'm being called back out of retirement to say, where is the activism in the way that we live, in the way that we work, in the way that we love, in the way that we put it all together? Our planet is so messed up. Now, how do I take the things that I love the most, which is about music and sound, and apply it to making things better? And so that's what this conversation is about. It's about music and sound in disrupted time and expanding the relevance of sound work for cultures in crisis. Now, a year ago, every culture on this planet was in crisis with COVID. And so it kind of feels like that crisis has passed. And so where are the next crises? And maybe they're not going to be global. Maybe it's going to be, the little rogue valley in Southern Oregon, one year, and the next year it's going to be in Bangladesh, and the next year it's going to be in Rio de Janeiro, and the next year it's going to be, who knows how this thing moves. But what we do know is that this is a great time to be in our field of sound work. Now, I'm not doing this just to be a cheerleader. I'm doing this because I'm looking around and I'm watching the clock, and I see that I don't have a lot of time. Boy, it's easy to talk a storm here. Listen, I have printed out, this is a great time to be in sound work. And why is it? Because there is so much science being put into sound work right now. Do you know that just in the since 2019, that's just 3 years ago, there must be 20 to 30 million dollars that has been invested by the United States government in studying music and sound. The National Institutes of Health, the National Endowments for the Arts, I put together, there is so much music research being done about how music and sound can be used in hospitals and in clinics all around the world. That's fabulous, because that means that sound work has been accepted into mainstream. And when people invest $15 million or $20 million for the first couple years for the stage 1 studies, that means that right behind it, they're going to put up another $20 million or another $30 million or $50 million, because they're finding out, as we all know as sound workers, that music and sound has got a lot of magic stuff in there. But it's not so magic. They're finding out what it is, which parts of the brain it lights up. So look, I did a bunch of research. This is going into my book. My new book is called, what is it called? It's called Soundwork. Soundwork for a Hot Rock. How's that? I like it. What do you think? And the hot rock is our planet, our hot planet. And it's about all the things that we're talking about right now, plus a lot more. And I wanted to write a whole section about this research that's being done. And if you would like to get a printout, there's not time for me to go into this stuff now, but if you want to get a PDF of this, then go to my website, joshualeeds.com. And there's a tab up on the top that says Sound Work on a Hot Rock. Go there, and you need to enter in your email address, and we will send you a copy of all this research. But the reason why I'm so excited about this research is because the academics, the scientists, they're all looking into how the frequencies affect things in disease, heart, dementia, brain issues, autism, old people, young people, everybody's got a piece in it, and it's all being researched. And that means that if you as a sound worker want to get involved, go back to school and become a music therapist, because the music therapists are going to be the ones who are hired to do all this stuff with this music research. Now, if you go, no, that's not my deal, I don't want to do it. Some people like that stuff. Some people like that stuff and like sound work just by itself. Sound work is about the frequencies, and it's about the tones, and the sound workers are like the folk musicians, and they're not like the classical musicians that are playing in Avery Fisher Hall and playing in Carnegie Hall and La Scala and all of that, which we love. And by the way, I need to do a big call out to Renee Fleming and to Frances Collins, because she, as a renowned opera singer, met up with the guy who was the head of the National Institutes of Health. They put their heads together. They went, it's time. And out of that, look what happened. Out of that came the opportunity for Frances Collins to say, I've got the money and you got the ideas and I've got the scientists, and let's go ahead and do this. And this is what we've been waiting for. Is we've been waiting for celebrities to take up the cause, and we've been waiting for the money to step in, and that's all happening. But now, what does we do? Let me just bring this back. What does we do? No, what do we do about using music and sound in disrupted times? Well, I wanted to tell you about the current research into therapeutic music and sound. And so that's one thing, okay? And it's fabulous. Come to joshualeeds.com, download it from Soundwork on a hot rock, and you can go through it on your own and you can take the next steps. But now what I really want to talk about is the culture becoming the patient. And I know that I'm about to run out of time. This is all happening so darn fast. You know, there are all these people that have been trained to work at the bedside. And in working at the bedside, I would like to posit that the schools that train musicians, sound workers, to work at the bedside, to help people to heal, to help people to pass over, that we start thinking about the culture itself needs music as much as those guys at the bedside. If you think about what was going on during the lockdowns all over, the beautiful, poignant pictures that were being shown in Milan, Italy, of the musicians coming out on their balconies to play, to bring hope. Music has been used forever as a process of social cohesion. And you know what? It's time to bring it back to the street. It's time for us to bring music. It's not one or the other, it's both. It's time to be bringing music back out so that our communities are surrounded with music, especially during times of crisis. Music upholds the spirit, it builds community. It reminds us of the harmony of what it is to be a human being that is happening, instead of a human being that is having to face all the negativity and face the challenge and face death and face longing for living a good life. So what needs to happen is, I would like to suggest in our conversation that, and I know this is a one-way conversation right now, but remember, this is an inquiry. This is about what can we do? That's really the bottom line. What can we do to be able to bring music back into our culture? And one of the ways that we do it is we think about music as being public. It's not about rock and roll stars in a coliseum and an $800 ticket. It's about musicians being out on the street, being in community centers, training children to play music, so that we have music on street corners. We have music everywhere for free. Somebody puts out a hat, throw in a buck, throw in $10, throw in whatever you can, because musicians have got to make a living as well. But what I'm saying is that music is so important because it talks to the heart. So my concept, and I'd like this conversation, if you're a Facebooker, go up to Soundwork 21. Soundwork 21, 21 for the 21st century. Let's get into a dialogue. Let's talk about how it is that we can bring public music back, because climate, COVID, social issues, this causes communities to go into crisis. People don't have enough money to pay for their food, to pay for their rent. They can't buy houses. What are we going to do about that? We're going to help shore up the human spirit. And this is where the Renaissance, my concept of Renaissance, emerges in all of this. It's not my concept. We know that the phoenix rises. We have some hard times in front of us, but we can do this. And music is one of the ways that we can support the brilliance of the human imagination and the human spirit. We need to take our music out of the concert halls, onto the streets, teach children. We need to take our music out of the hospitals. We leave enough of it there. It's not like it's one or the other, it's both and. And this allows us to be able to start to teach the culture how to use music. We've forgotten about that. But remember, music started on the street. Music started in the marketplace. Music started as a part of our culture. You know, I mean, music was just a part of the culture, and then we gave it away. We just made it, oh, well, only the people that can sing a perfect pitch should sing. And I'm saying, hey, forget that stuff. We should all be singing in the choirs on the street corners. It upholds, it uplifts the spirit. It reminds us of our oneness. It is a tool that is important. So I think that my time is up for this little rant that I've just been on, this little talk that I've just been on. And so my mother was a speech teacher, and she used to always say to me, tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. So I'm going to do that. So here's the deal. There is an organization out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, called the Black String Triage Ensemble. Look them up. This is the most progressive utilization of music that I have come across. I love what these guys do. Their mission, under the baton of David Hallman out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, is using Black music and art to address pain, foster healing, promote love, call for justice, and guard against hopelessness. That dude says it all. That's it right there. He says the purposes of the Black String Triage Ensemble is committed to using music as the healing force for the soul in the immediate aftermath of community violence. So when George Floyd died, the Black String Triage Ensemble got in their cars and drove there and played beautiful music to help, to address pain, to foster healing, to promote love, to call for justice, and to guard against hopelessness. And so that's what I've been talking about. And that's what I'm going to continue to talk about, because I can't think of anything more important than for us as musicians, sound workers, to be able to say, we love this planet. We love our communities on this planet. And how can we guard against hopelessness? And how can we call for justice and promote love? So everybody, God bless. Everybody take care, be safe, be well, and thank you for taking the time to listen to me today. Bye.